This weak virgin boy gets transported to an entirely different world alone, where he is forced to fight with monsters and find food himself to survive each day. A young man lives in a monotonous routine where every day feels the same, a stability he thinks should comfort him but only leaves him yearning for change. One evening after work, he switches on the TV and is suddenly pulled inside, confronted by a figure who claims to oversee the solar system. Startled, he asks if this makes the stranger an alien, but the being explains he is more like a divine middle manager of the universe. Frustrated, the overseer laments the endless failures of a planet called Medius, where civilizations repeatedly collapse. He insists that even a single drop can alter the course of the world, and he wants this ordinary Japanese worker to be that drop. The man learns he is already dead. Refusal means his soul vanishes forever, but acceptance grants him passage to Medius with special abilities of his choosing. As an example, the overseer shows extreme magical potential in his ledger. Eager, the worker requests pleasant female companions and improved recognition skills to identify valuable materials, both of which the overseer promises to grant. He's granted a pouch for storage, instant knowledge of the local language, and several resistances. Then his body starts fading, terrifying him, until the supervisor calmly says it's time to go. Realizing he may have given too many gifts, the man knows it's already too late. The ordinary office worker is sent to a fantasy world, where he opens his eyes to breathtaking scenery that leaves him stunned. Unsure of what to do, he decides to seek people and soon spots a distant village. Without money for food, he recalls his recognition ability and thinks he can gather materials as sell. Testing it, he picks up a stick as a wand and shouts a command, but nothing happens, leaving him embarrassed. Writing the word "search" in the dirt and repeating it aloud, glowing symbols appear, guiding him to scattered resources. Realizing the need for correct command words, he experiments with others like check, investigate, and scan. To his surprise, one works, opening a panel that details a flower's traits. Excited, he collects items all around, though most turn out to be disappointingly low-ranked. He accidentally picks up what he later realizes is a lump of dung, but the mishap teaches him that tradable items appear with icons trackable by recognition magic. After gathering enough, he rushes to the village, eager to learn their value before nightfall. At the gate, a drowsy guard questions him, and the young man introduces himself as Takeru. Surprised by his height, the guard guesses he's a warrior, but Takeru explains he only came to sell materials. The guard, a patrolman of the village, notes it's rare to see someone skilled in gathering and directs him to the general store since there's no dedicated materials shop. As Takeru enters, villagers eye him curiously. At the store, he shows the merchant the dung, who identifies it as hammer antler excrement and praises its unique qualities, offering 5 silver coins. Unsure of its worth, Takeru asks the inn's price, learning one night costs 500 yen while silver is worth 1,000. Realizing the dung equals about 50,000 yen, he's shocked such filth is so valuable and even more disturbed watching the merchant lovingly rub it against his cheek. The shopkeeper, intrigued, asks to see more of the traveler's goods and is stunned when Takeru's pouch reveals even rarer items. Curious about his presence in such a remote town, he learns that the young man has been roaming and gathering materials. Seizing the chance, the merchant offers him a job to collect mithril ore from the eastern mountain, warning that monsters inhabit the area. Before that, he pays Takeru 360,000 raves, roughly 3.6 million yen, for the materials, an amount that shocks the boy. Later, Takeru finally secures a room, longing only for a bath. Instead, an inn worker barges in carrying a basin of hot water, explaining it costs 30 raves since commoners lack proper bathtubs, with only nobles or mages offering better alternatives, and no mages live in the village. Amused but uninterested in more talk, Takeru pays the fee with a small tip that delights her. Left alone, he reflects on the idea of magic as a way to cleanse the body. After some thought, the man tests a word as a spell and shouts "clean." The skill works, leaving Takeru spotless and glowing with joy, though he secretly wishes for a real bath. The next day, he returns to the forest near Torre, feeling more confident in collecting materials to sell. While searching, he discovers a sword icon marking a fallen warrior's remains, and despite the unimpressive weapons, he buries the body with care, using the sword as a grave marker. By afternoon, he draws a circle, speaks barrier, and watches his shield shimmer before fading, giving him peace of mind. He then cooks stew with village spices, forest vegetables, and meat, savoring the taste of his new life. When dawn arrives, Takeru heads toward the forest of white trees known as the Land of Ancient Dragons. In the eastern mountains where mithril was rumored to be, Takeru pushed through dark woods with only an orb of light, growing irritated at the lifeless silence. No ore, no creatures, nothing but emptiness. Maybe even monsters avoided his stench. Deciding to press on, he rushed toward the mountain, only to charge blindly off a cliff. By sheer luck, his desperate cry of "glide" activated a spell that slowed his fall, landing him gently in a hidden valley rich with silver veins. He set to work with his pickaxe, but remembered the merchant wanted mithril, not silver. Using search magic again, he sensed a faint signal deeper within a cavern, right as the ground began to tremble. With little time, he blasted through the rock using Ignite and Eruption, uncovering an A-rank mithril vein. The quake urged him to flee, yet his greed pulled him farther in, where at the back of the cave he stumbled upon a spring of crystal-clear water. While examining the material, Takeru realizes its S rank, his greatest find so far. The thought strikes him. If this water carries the mana of an ancient dragon, perhaps one once lived here. His suspicion is confirmed when the dragon itself rises from the lake. Instead of cowering, he withstands its pressure and apologizes for intruding, a habit carried over from his days as a Japanese laborer who bowed to everyone. Yet he never imagined bowing to a dragon. Amused, the beast asks who he is. Takeru introduces himself as an ordinary human, but the dragon senses otherwise, his power rivals its own. Introducing itself as Voldias, the creature allows Takeru to call him Van when the boy casually asks. With the tension eased, Voldias reveals his wish. A human's pure magic might awaken his dormant child's egg, long stilled by stagnant mana. In exchange, he offers mithril. Takeru agrees, and the dragon retrieves a massive black egg from the depths, instructing him to channel magic into it as he once did with his guiding light. Unsure, Takeru whispers heat, sending warmth into the shell, only for a far more unsettling reaction to erupt. The egg felt like it was consuming Takeru, driving his very skin inward as the dragon's laughter echoed through the cavern. He feared he'd been deceived, his adventure ending so pathetically, yet just when hope had begun to spark. His consciousness slipped into an astral sea where a mysterious figure appeared, chastising him for recklessly diving into danger. Any ordinary person would have fled before a dragon, yet Takeru's defiance seemed to warp the world's laws themselves. The being revealed had been shaping this realm for eons, but Takeru's presence spread disruptive ripples it could not ignore. Annoyed, it resolved to reduce some powers he had gained from the overseer of the solar system. Takeru awoke to a baby's babble within a void, followed by Voldias' voice. Conjuring light, he discovered the dragon's child had hatched, jet black and full of life. As thanks, Voldias allowed him to name the hatchling. Takeru chose B, short for black, though the dragon misunderstood it as B, and the name stuck. Declaring that the child must journey with Takeru, Voldias entrusted the boy with a duty he found heavy but unavoidable. Before sinking back into the depths, the dragon cast a strange spell on Takeru's bag. Left with the newborn, Takeru invited B to join him in gathering supplies, only to realize the little creature reeked terribly. With a grimace, he used his cleaning skill to spare himself from an unbearably smelly trip. Takeru asks the little dragon if he feels lonely without his parents, but B simply hugs him, showing that being together is enough. Smiling, Takeru checks B's status and finds him to be a B rank with great potential. Still, since B is just a child, his friend warns him not to act recklessly, though in the end, it's Takeru who gets scolded by Voldias. Meanwhile, B has already fallen asleep, unaware of their conversation. Takeru then recalls asking for a cute companion before arriving in this world. He's unsure if this tiny reptile is what he meant, but he suspects the odd manager planned it that way. Regardless, the two continue their journey with B flying happily as Takeru climbs a cliff. When he reaches the top, he realizes he's somehow returned to the same forest as before, but this time doesn't seem frightening. Believing it to be a strange magical forest, he begins searching for C-rank resources and activates his detection ability, thrilled to find various herbs. His excitement vanishes, however, when B rushes back in panic. Expanding his search, Takeru senses multiple hostile creatures drawing near. He once thought his scent repelled monsters, but it seemed to have worn off. Now exposed and surrounded, Takeru braces himself, ready to prove he's not an easy target. Takeru prepares for battle, confident in his strength. Soon, a massive C-rank rockhawk appears, though after facing Voldias, it looks more like a chicken to him. Perfect for lunch. Analyzing its meat is rich and fatty, he wastes no time. He conjures a magic shield, then fires ice needles that pierce and instantly kill the creature. But more enemies appear. 6 C-rank serpent wolves surround him and his dragon. Takeru enhances his speed and lightens his body, dodging a lunge before hardening his limbs. He kicks one wolf's neck, punches another into a third, strikes a fourth in the jaw, and finishes the last 2 with heavy slaps. After collecting their meat, he realizes the forest still teems with monsters and survival seems uncertain. Worried for his dragon partner, he helps him lift off by reducing his own weight. However, the dragon's sudden burst of strength sends them flying uncontrollably. Losing balance, the dragon drops Takeru from high above, but the boy's fall is luckily softened by the trees below. It was a miracle that Kamishiro Takeru survived, and B celebrated by licking his face with his foul-smelling tongue. Takeru complained about the manure stench but was too traumatized to move or react. Although B managed to get them out of the white tree forest, he somehow brought them back to the same campsite as yesterday. Takeru nearly scolded him but held back, knowing B only meant to help. He reminded the dragon that he was human, not a doll, but B didn't understand and instead hugged him tightly, overjoyed by his friend's presence. They resumed their journey to Tormi village, about a day's walk away. Along the way, B took interest in the stick Takeru carried, which turned out to be a dormant branch of Yggdrasil. Without permission, B infused it with mana, awakening it into a staff, something that clearly annoyed Takeru, who didn't want to be mistaken for a mage. Suddenly, a terrifying roar echoed from deep within the forest. B instantly grabbed Takeru and, filled with courage, flew toward the sound, forcing his human companion to chase after him. There they discovered an injured elf leaning against a tree. Takeru finds an exhausted elf and asks if she was attacked by the forest monster, only to realize she is the supposed monster. The terrifying roar he heard was just her stomach growling after 3 days without food. Weakly asking for water, she drinks eagerly, but her hunger persists, so Takeru offers her the lunch he got from the innkeeper. She devours it with bliss. Curious why she hadn't eaten when the village was nearby, he questions her. Flustered, she claims she was in a hurry, but when he teases her for not packing food, she gets irritated and releases a foul smell. Shocked, Takeru realizes not all elves smell like flowers. This one smells like fertilizer. Embarrassed, she insists she's been camping for days and thanks him before leaving, muttering that calling someone fertilizer-scented is rude. After she's gone, Takeru gathers more materials and comes across a carriage pulled by an E-rank unicorn. The friendly driver, Porin, offers him a ride after learning he's headed to Tormi village. When asked if he's a mage, Takeru says he's just a collector, though Porin mistakes him for a specialist. He doesn't bother correcting it and joins the family, Porin, his wife Eliza, and their children Kin and Yunin. The kids quickly warm up to him, easing their parents' trust. Grateful, Takeru admires their courage for traveling dangerous roads. Jokingly, he asks what they'd do if he were a bandit, and the boy proudly shows a magic item that rings when danger is near. Amused, Takeru thinks he can make something similar. When his small creature, B, squirms under his clothes, he reveals it but hides that it's a dragon's child. Porin jokes he must be a dragon knight, and Takeru awkwardly says he just found an egg. Eliza stays cautious, aware of how rare such creatures are. Intrigued by the idea of dragon knights, Takeru grows thoughtful, later setting up magic stones to alert them if monsters approach that night. B kept watch and would alert them if danger approached. The family completely trusted the dragon, which made Takeru wonder how they could place such faith in such a powerful creature. When Eliza offered to cook dinner, Takeru insisted on doing it himself as thanks. He amazed everyone by pulling ingredients from his bag and swiftly preparing a special meat salad. Eliza and the children loved it, but Porin seemed strangely quiet. Worried, Takeru asked if he used too much seasoning, only to learn that Porin was moved to tears. It was the first real meal they had after days of eating only dried meat. Seeing his children so happy filled him with joy, and he called Takeru a mage of cooking. After dinner, they sang together, and the warmth of the moment made Takeru think of his old life on Earth, how dull it had been to eat alone in silence. Tonight, for the first time in this world, he laughed from the heart. Later, as he lay down, he gently patted the sleeping bee, looked up at the starry sky, and smiled with quiet contentment. As dawn broke, Porin was already busy cleaning the carriage and washing away the rain while the children slept soundly with B nestled between them. Takeru, already awake, sat on the ground polishing his scissors until they gleamed. When Eliza stepped out after preparing everything, she greeted him warmly, saying that someone who cared for their tools would make a fine adventurer. Takeru smiled, realizing how much he had come to enjoy his life. Though he had become a gatherer by chance, he felt it suited him naturally. When it was time to leave, Takeru asked to tape the reins, and Porin agreed. Sitting beside him, Takeru guided the unicorn with ease, the creature responding to his every command as if it understood him perfectly. Soon B awoke, fluttered to Takeru's side, and perched near his legs as they rode smoothly onward. After a few peaceful hours, the Tori village appeared in the distance. At the gate, Takeru disembarked as Porin and his family thanked him for their shared journey before parting ways. The guard recognized Porin, joking that he always brought the spring with him. Curious, Takeru asked what he meant, and the guard explained that Porin, a traveling weaver, followed the warm seasons. His arrival in the village meant that spring and summer were close behind. The guard mentioned that hunting had become scarce in the area, making Takeru realize why Porin was so delighted with the food. Grateful to the gods for his gathering skills, he appreciated never having to worry about food or money. Later, he met the shopkeeper who had given him the quest and presented his findings. The shopkeeper carefully examined each item but was particularly drawn to one rock. When asked where he had found it, Takeru was confused. unaware that it was no ordinary mithril ore but a magical one. The shopkeeper explained that such ore was legendary, filled with immense mana capable of replacing all the kingdom's magic stones with just a few pieces. Shocked, Takeru pretended he had found it by chance, hiding his true ability. The shopkeeper didn't believe him, praising his talent and luck instead. He advised Takeru to leave the village for a larger city where he could sell such rare items and gain deeper knowledge of the world, suggesting he join a guild to improve his skills for future adventures. That night, Takeru relaxed in his room, researching guilds and adventurers. He realized becoming an adventurer could benefit him, but there was no rush. Deciding his next step would be to join a guild, he chose to stay in Tormia a bit longer. Days passed as he offered the beasts he had slain to be cooked for the whole village. With game scarce, everyone enjoyed the meal, even the local troublemakers marking his gesture a success. He spent more time wandering the village and gathering supplies before preparing to leave. The kind old lady gave him seasonings and spices for his journey, saying the villagers had grown fond of him and wished he'd stay. Takeru promised to return someday, but said he had to continue his travels. She also packed homemade meals for the long trip to Bell, which would take nearly a month, and told him to return if he ever felt homesick. Grateful, he thanked her and went back to his room, putting B to sleep for the journey ahead. As he lay down, he thought about the kindness the village had shown him and felt he should give something back in return. Takeru rose from his bed and walked to the table, gazing at the lantern and the mithril stone. Remembering how the village guards worked tirelessly to keep monsters away, he decided to use the stone's mana and his creativity to fuse the lantern into a magical item. The next morning, as he prepared to leave, the villagers gathered to see him off. Feeling a deep attachment to the place he now considered home, he gifted them the item, explaining that it could form a barrier to protect the village from monsters. The villagers were touched, but the shopkeeper examined it and discovered the mithril stone still inside. Before he could return it, Takeru ran off, shouting for him to keep it for the village. Waving goodbye, the villagers watched as Takeru began his new journey. The morning breeze brushed his face as he wandered through the open fields, enjoying the day until a massive crab monster appeared. Though startled, he checked its stats and saw it was a C-rank beast, manageable and, more importantly, edible. His fear turned to excitement as he grinned and told B that crab meat was delicious. Takeru prepared for battle, hardening his body with magic, but before he could act, B unleashed a supersonic blast that instantly took down the crab. As Takeru approached to finish it off, 2 more crabs appeared, circling him. He quickly devised a plan, assuming they could only move sideways, but to his shock, they charged straight at him. Just as he thought it was over, B grabbed him by the collar and lifted him away as the 2 crabs collided and died. The first crab, however, rose again and rushed toward them, but this time Takeru was ready. He swung his staff like a bat, smashing the creature to death. Later that evening, the 2 prepared a meal from their spoils. Takeru strengthened his hand with enchantments, chopped the crab legs, and cooked them with water and spices into a thick stew. When they finally tasted it, he was delighted by the flavor and told B how excited he was to explore more lands and taste more dishes of this new world. Despite the villagers' claims, reaching the city didn't take him a month. It stood nearby, a massive fortress bordered by the sea. Takeru queued with the other peasants to enter the city, but realizing he might stand out, he disguised his magic bag and told B to hide. When his turn came, the immigration officers checked his ID and belongings using a simple magic scan to confirm he wasn't a criminal or a threat. The inspection was relaxed and nothing unusual was found. Curious about how others saw his stats, Takeru realized the god had made him appear ordinary. The officer mentioned he had a dragon's blessing, which puzzled them, so Takeru revealed B, instantly charming everyone. The agent, though amused, asked him to tag the dragon for safety, so B fastened a bracelet around B's tail, completing their entry. Inside, the lively city amazed him, people of all races bustling about buying goods, training, and chatting. His attention soon fell on the Grand Adventurers Guild. Entering the hall, he was greeted by Ariana, a cheerful bunny girl who welcomed him and offered to help him register. Takeru agreed, and as she recorded his details, she asked about his combat experience. He admitted he hadn't done much, only fighting a strange bird, some snake wolves, and a few giant crabs. Ariana, puzzled, asks for proof, and Takeru casually pulls a dead crab from his pocket, slamming it on the table so hard it breaks. Terrified, Ariana rushes outside as the guild crowds around. A furry member checks Takeru with his special skill and assures Era that he isn't dangerous, explaining that his ability reveals a person's intent, red for hostility and blue for harmless. Since Takeru appears blue, he's safe. Relieved, Takeru is then asked why he carries a dead crab, to which he bluntly replies that he plans to eat it, shocking everyone since no one in this world eats crabs. Still, the guild is more tolerant than expected and lets it go. The furry urges Ariana to finish Takeru's registration and asks if he has any partners. Takeru replies that his only companion is his dragon, astonishing everyone since both dragons and gatherers are rare, and having both is almost unheard of. Attention quickly shifts toward him as several guilds invite him to join their parties. Ariana then leads him to another room, where instead of anything strange, Takeru receives the guild's mark on his application, officially making him an adventurer. He's given a copper bracelet marking him as rank F, the beginner level, but he doesn't mind. He's too busy imagining the adventures that await. If you're enjoying the journey of this series, please hit that like and subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any updates. All of your support helps me to keep bringing more high-quality recaps.